Hey guys, Mike here. So, oh boy, what a day in the market, all right. I mean, we got China, Deepseek, whatever you want to call it last night. I mean, absolutely torpedoed the market. One of the indexes was down 5%, but the funny thing is, there was a whole lot of green in the market when it opened up today. You just wouldn't feel it if you were heavy tech. And we're going to get into all that. We're going to talk about real quick, like what Deepseek actually is, what caused this, especially Nvidia melting down and stuff. And one thing that happened at 4 a.m. that if this would not have happened, this would have been a much worse day. There's no doubt about it, and the market definitely would have went down more than 5%. That is for sure. We'll get into that as well. Plus a couple other stocks, and I always trigger people when I say SofI better hang the moon on this earnings because it ran up. It's price perfection. Of course, what happens, it sells off. We'll get into Palantir as well. They got earnings coming up, even though now they're selling off. So they're not going to be run up in earnings maybe, but we'll see on that one. But again, people get all triggered when you say something's price perfection. I'm just telling you, if you're running up heavy into earnings, you don't just have to beat earnings. You got to hang the moon. That's just the way it has to be. Keep that rule in mind. Now, I didn't like this little meme here. OpenAI investors at a $160 billion valuation watching Deepseek build an open source GPT with $6 million. And it says, I'm in danger. But again, this is from The Simpsons and stuff. Found that to be funny. And obviously, you can see what I'm talking about here. Market goes really red. It's recovering right now in after hours, by the way. But then you got the Dow Jones up. Dow Jones Transportation's up really nicely. The RSP Equal Weight ETF on the SPY. I think it was actually green by the end of the day. And then when you go over here and look at the stocks, when you're talking about, what are you talking about, green and stuff? I mean, there's plenty of green. I mean, plenty of green coming down here. As you can see, it's just if you're in anything that has to do with energy, semiconductors, anything to do with those data centers, all that fun stuff, chips, blah, 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 then yes, those got absolutely nuked, and other tech as well. But again, that was even the China stocks were actually green. And then you come over here and you see the sectors. I mean, some of these are up big today because money's going to rotate somewhere, baby. That's the way it always works. It just sloshes from one to the other, and you see a lot of money piling into those sectors right there. And then when you look at what was really red, oof, yeah, the semiconductors absolutely down double digits at one point in time. XLK, that's big tech right there. Mag 7, Mag 8. There is what's going on with anything to do with those are energy stocks, chip stocks, anything to do with the data centers and stuff. Yeah, I mean, look at those. Holy moly. Way down. But you got to remember, these stocks, because I was going to do a members video on this. I recorded it Friday. I ain't going to put it out anymore. And I was saying they were overstretching that video, and I wouldn't chase it. I mean, these stocks are up massive, man. I mean, absolutely massive. And of course, this Deepseek deal coming out of China, really the things I take away from it, because I'm not a tech person, but obviously, a lot. OpenAI spent a lot of money coming up with Chat GPT, and it was the cool thing, and still is the cool thing. But this one from Deepseek says, one, it's the #1 most downloaded Apple app there is, or I'm sorry, on the Apple Store, that is. They open sourced it so anybody can see it. Two, they sat there, or 2 or 3, they sat there and supposedly created it with less of these chips. It uses less energy, and supposedly, even though it says 6 million, there actually is a disclaimer right there saying there's a lot of research and development they don't include in those costs because we know they didn't do it for $6 million. But, either way, that's a pretty big deal if it's true. Is it true? Does anybody really know what the truth is? No, you look on social media, everybody's all over the place. But what it does do is, if it is actually true, because they did open source and everything, then the fact is that brings a lot more players to the table. So you can look at this twofold, right? Because NVIDIA them dropped, they're like, oh, they're using less chips, so we won't even need this many chips. So the chip demand's way overbought or whatever it is, and so we're going to sell this down. Another way to look at it is to say, well, because NVIDIA come out and said Deepseek is an excellent AI advancement and a perfect example of test time scaling. I'm not going to pretend to know what that is. Deepseek's work illustrates how new models can be created using that technique, leveraging widely available models and compute that is fully expert control compliant. Inference requires significant numbers of NVIDIA GPUs and high-performance networking. We now have 3 scaling laws, pre-training and post-training, which continue, and new test time scaling. And so they are giving credibility to Deepseek, obviously, but also at the end there, you see what they're saying? Oh, they're still going to need a lot of GPUs, even though, believe it or not, remember, China's supposed to be restricted from getting a lot of these, but we know they get them they have an end around on this, and supposedly this used like some older model of these chips, you know, but again, who knows? I mean, you don't even know. And so depends on what you believe. The biggest thing is the demand for these GPU chips still going to be high? Are they going to be higher? Because now it opens up to other companies maybe be able to afford to actually do this, and that we don't know, right? That's what there's so many unknowns, which is why the market did what? It sold down. But you would love to have a way of what they're doing. If it does use less power, that's a pretty big deal. If it does open up for more companies to be able to actually get into this besides just the big boys that have all the money, that's a big deal. So if you are a tech person, you know, let us know in the comments. Some of you guys do a great job of explaining that stuff like that. I'm a tech dummy, but I'm just really trying to focus on what it means for the market and what it means for especially these stocks. That's really the big thing. So let me know your comments on that, and getting into some of these right here. And again, what happened at 4 a.m. this morning is going to be the big one here. I'll show you. But SPY, what do? We talked about this in lower high. Well, guess what? We got the lower high, and we got a massive RTH gap right here. Forget about the small one I had on there. You got a massive gap here. It did close above the 50 moving average, which is good. But, you know, for those who are asking why you want a lower high, this is it. This is market structure. So is that where it's going to end? That's what we got to see. We got FOMC Wednesday, mega caps reporting Wednesday as well, Apple reporting Thursday. Qs, we said it didn't set it did not set a new all-time high. Well, guess what? Here we go. So that's actually a lower high. Came down, filled this gap right here. Is that going to be where it stopped, right? It got rejected off that 50 moving average, unlike the SPY who held the 50. And so that's what we're going to find out. SPY had those 3 gaps. We don't need to fill, but they could have filled. And so, you know, we're going to get to see on this one. Again, this is a major RTH gap. Once it gets above that 50, you know, we're going to see, if you see this thing fill more than 50% of that gap above, most likely it's going to fill all of it. But you could obviously see maybe some wait and see, right? Because with FOMC on Wednesday, all those mega caps reporting as well on Wednesday and Thursday, the market may want to see what's going on, because you're going to find out when they talk about how much money they're putting towards CapEx. You're going to get to find that out when they do forward guidance and stuff. So that is a big deal. Again, the 100 moving average right there, 500, 501 could be support if we continue to try to see it move down. Right now, we are oversold like crazy on lower time frames. That's why you're seeing a bounce in the late afternoon and overnight trading right now, as I can see. Again, IWM, another rejection off this trend line. So that trend line is definitely holding right there. You can see right there, rejected Friday and rejected today to come down. But small caps held up really well, because obviously when it comes to semiconductor and stuff like that, they don't have a whole lot of exposure to it like others do. They do have exposure to what, though? A lot of those stocks that are quantum computing, that have a lot to do with the data center, things like that. I got the 100 moving average right below it. So we're going to see how this is going to hold up. Because funny thing, the 10-year actually went down almost 2% this morning. And so now you got that trend line and the 50 right above it. 100's right there. Again, if it drops down, 222, probably going to be somewhere. Support will put that gap right there. So you can see it. But this one held up rather well. But if those, you know, quantum computing stocks and then all the energy stocks that has on there start selling down, obviously that's going to put pressure on this one right here. But if yields continue to drop, that's going to help it out. Now, Apple, look at this right here. It didn't hit the 200, but man, it had a really big day today. Well, guess what happened at 4 a.m.? It gapped down, bounced, and from there, it hit its 200 moving average to the penny. And when you look at it, I mean, this is a big day for Apple, a big move, almost 7% from that 200 moving average. And just imagine if the thing hadn't already sold down as much as it had and hadn't hit that 200, and this one went down 3 to 4% on top of Nvidia and Microsoft and Tesla and stuff like that, how bad of a day it actually would have been. It would have been really bad. Okay, but remember, they've already been selling this down. It's down 16%. All right, so before we even hit that, and that 200, I mean, that was definitely a big bounce. Now, it filled the gap. Does that mean it's out of the woods? Absolutely not. They report earnings on Thursday. We know their growth's been terrible. Coming into the 100 moving average right there. And so, again, it doesn't mean, you know, this is, oh my God, piling to Apple, here we go, we're going to the moon, whatever. But that 200 bounce, that's what got it. And so now we get to see if we get above that golden pocket, above the 100 moving average, and then it's going to hit that 50 as well. So you really want to look for like 240-ish, I believe it is, to get above that, to really start cooking here. But, you know, this right here is what really helped the market out today. It would have been, man, it would have been so bad if this would have been on 3 to 5%. Of course, Nvidia, obviously, is real easy. Let's just keep it simple. That's a big RTH cap, right? big RTH gap, closed below the 200 moving average. More importantly, what happened midday, which I was looking at when it gapped below it, was what was going to happen when it came up to it. Well, what happened? It got rejected in the middle of the day. Okay, that's what happened. That 50 fibs there, that 200 moving average. The 50 fibs actually here, we rejected multiple times off that, which is why I keep the fibs in place. But then it came back up and rejected off that 200. What you're really looking for, though, is just to get above 200, right? You'd love for it to get above and retest. That will be bullish. But if you see it come up and get rejected again, that is not a good sign, okay? There could be something lower in place here. Is what we got to watch for. But just wait for it to get above the 200, right? That's really a big deal. You see what happened when Apple bounced off this 200. I mean, a huge move up for this one, or that one, excuse me. But again, yeah, you look at this right here. So when it comes back up, it's got to get above the 200, got to get above that level where it was getting rejected. And so, and what was happening before? You saw Avgo and Taiwan Semiconductors, and all those were doing much better, ARM and stuff. So this one wasn't like it was getting some great amount of love before. And so we got to see. I know a lot of people were buying dips. Some people were dumping, obviously. That's why it kept going down. A lot of people were selling puts on this thing. That's for sure, especially around, I believe it's the 100, 110. They're trying to sell out maybe 2 or 3 months because you can get a lot of premium when it drops like that. And look at Tesla right here. Obviously, this one right here actually closed above the 50 moving average, was a good thing. We thought, remember we thought I was going to hit here, it may hit here, and then finally it hits the 50 moving average after this right here, right around that golden pocket area. And so that's, it's a positive thing. You wouldn't think this one right here would be affected as much when it comes to obviously this news we got and everything like that, because they're inventing robots and all this fun stuff. But they do report earnings on Wednesday, I believe it is. And this is another one when it comes to earnings, right? I mean, because we're not going to take this gap, but we'll take the election gap up. I mean, a lot of stuff is priced in, right? I mean, it had such a huge move, and so you better start hearing a lot about the autonomous taxis and robots and everything else on there, and they better be on schedule, because if they start talking about delays and all this other fun stuff, like, it's not going to be pretty. I can tell you that right now. And if you get that, I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying be aware. If you get it, the real support, because this right here, look at that move. That's just straight up. It's like a cliff, right? The real support, if you have any, is going to be between like 348, 360, somewhere in there is where you could see that if this thing gets pushed down, like say, SofI did today and some others. That's what you're looking for. I'm not saying it's going to happen, because I can't predict what Elon Musk is going to say on that call, and neither can you. And so, but just, mark that zone out for yourself. Now, SofI here, we have talked about, again, it was price perfection because it had such a large move up. Not saying it didn't deserve it, not saying anything like that. Just saying, when you're running up that much in the earnings and setting new all-time high, or new 52-week highs, you better kill it. And of course, they had good earnings, right? But they just didn't hit what the street wanted them to. And so they got double digits knocked down, right? Not a big deal. Coming down to an area right here where you can see some support. You can start to see a bounce or build out a base right here. So this is all I was saying the other day. You got the golden pocket right there below it, that trend line. We can get a retest. So really anywhere from like 14 to 1585 right there is going to be a good zone to actually look for support and look for this to base out right here. Okay, it's been one of those theme type of stocks. It's been red hot, so keep that in mind. And when you look at this one, we'll pull up the MACD, we'll pull up the RSI. Obviously, you got to get the momentum turned back around now. You did have a bearish MACD cross on the 4 hour here, as you can see. And so again, this can turn back up. RSI is below 50. And so you just need that momentum to start to shift back around right here. And, I think PayPal was green today. Most other fintechs were also red as well. But it's just one of those things. Big run. This was going to happen, consolidate, and then we'll see if this thing starts to move up to that 18 area once again. Palantir, of course, what is this? We talked about this yesterday. Somebody asked me this. What do you mean lower high? Well, that's the high, right? That's the high, all-time high. That's a low, and that's a lower high. Okay, and now it's selling down right here. But, when you look at this right here, again, that's another one. Where is it going to base out at, right? Is this going to be the bottom somewhere in that area right there to start to move up? Because they do report earnings on February 3rd, so not this week, should be next week, but that's a crazy move up. that's a crazy move up. And so if you thought SofI was going to have, hang the moon, Palantir would definitely have to hang the moon and come up with something really good. Okay, that's for sure. So just the good thing is, if it stays down here, it even bases out, at least it wasn't running up into earnings. Okay, so that kind of helps. Again, that trend line will keep in place. So that's where it got rejected right there. So we're going to see, if this is going to end up, and put a trend on right here too, if it does come back up. And speaking of earnings, you look at tomorrow, you got Boeing, GM, Lockheed Martin, Royal Caribbean, RTX, JetBlue, and then that's where Starbucks, which has actually been looking pretty darn good. And then Lending Club, which is another fintech as well. And then when it comes to data, we're going to have some data coming out finally. We'll get some data. It's going to end up with core durable goods, and then you'll have CB consumer confidence after the bell, and then Richmond manufacturing index. And manufacturing has been looking better in a lot of areas, so I'll bring some of that to you tomorrow, unless we have another crazy day and I got to start talking about Deepseek and everything else. But anyway, let me know how your day went. Please hit the like, subscribe button on your way out. Think about signing up for the membership. Less than a McDonald's combo, and that's everything you get with it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.